Hey guys, I don't know what I'm going to call this video yet. Maybe something like when electronics go bad or something along those lines. You may have seen my shop update on my lighting already, and I mentioned that I got some ballast off of my buddy, which kind of motivated me to wire some lights up. And turns out they were all pretty much useless. None of them worked. So being the tinker that I am, decided to crack one open and see if I could troubleshoot what the problem was. And as far as these newer fluorescent ballasts go, they're pretty simple. Just some wires, a chassis, and a control box here. Which once you open that up, it does look like it gets a little bit more complicated. It's really not. It's pretty simple construction. Just some capacitors, some coils, some resistors, and that's kind of what regulates your fluorescent tubes and all that, and starts them up for you. But after cracking this open, I immediately saw what was wrong, or at least one of the things that was wrong. This is probably really the only thing. There's a capacitor here, which is obviously blown up. The end's ballooned out, which is a very common telltale sign of a failed cap. I don't know if you can see that too well. The end is kind of pushed out a little bit, definitely compared to the one next to it, which is still flat, or even that one on the end of my thumb. That's another capacitor. And I've seen this, seems like dozens of times, working on anything from televisions to radios, to amplifiers, to guitar pedals. Seems like a capacitor is almost always one of the first things to go, especially with LCD screens and things like that in your computer monitors. If you've ever had one that right when you shut it on or turn it on, it shuts right back off again, that's almost always a capacitor problem in my experience. And like I said, one easy way to tell is just a visual inspection. You can often see the ends are ballooned out, or the insulation around the side is split just from where it expands. But kind of brings up an interesting point. Whether it's a $10 ballast like this, or a $2,000 or $3,000 plasma screen, and anything in between, whenever an electronic piece of equipment malfunctions, I would say a good 95% of the time, again, despite its cost, the problem can always be traced back to a single component that's maybe worth no more than 25 cents to $1. So kind of puts things in perspective on how something so complex as like a plasma screen could be brought down with such a cheap component, but then at the same time cost hundreds of dollars to repair. I don't know if that helps any of you guys sleep at night. If it makes you feel any better, most of the time you're not necessarily getting ripped off. It's just that instead of replacing that single capacitor, they trace the problem to a much larger series of components, like a power supply, a convergence board, a motherboard. Instead of replacing the one component, they'll replace the whole thing that's full of dozens of components. And that's where a lot of the cost comes in, because it's much more cost efficient and time effective for them as full-time repair techs to just replace the whole thing rather than troubleshoot it, because a lot of times, even if it is just a single capacitor that brought it down, you have to figure out also, why did that capacitor fail? Could have been just that it was made wrong, it had a bad tolerance on it. Maybe there was a power surge, maybe something accidentally got shorted one day when you were moving it. But could be something simple, an isolated incident, or it could be something further down the line that kind of wore it out prematurely. And even if you did replace it, same thing would happen, or worse, the next time it broke down on you. So just thought that was interesting. definitely puts a different twist or perspective on things. Next time your TV breaks down, your radio blows up, it's probably not that the whole thing failed or is worthless. It could just be as simple as replacing a single component. That being said, I don't recommend you guys start poking around trying to find bad capacitors or resistors or things like that if you don't know what you're doing. Because a lot of electronics do carry lethal voltages, even while unplugged, whether you've had them unplugged for a day or a few weeks. Sometimes capacitors or things like that can hold a lethal charge for a very long time. Definitely with tube amps, in my experience, I've seen capacitors with 450 volts DC in them or more, so I don't recommend opening things up like I do. I do have experience with this. I do have an electrical degree, electrical engineering technology, so I've got a little bit more experience than the next guy, but I did want to make this video and kind of give some extra perspective on that, so feel free to rate, comment, ask questions, start a discussion. I think it's interesting. I don't know about you guys, but that's that. I might repair that ballast, I might not. Like I told you in my other video, I just went ahead and bought a couple more for $10 each, which was far more worth my time and effort than swapping that out right away. I might go ahead and see if I can get it working again when I got some free time, but for now, it'll go somewhere in the back of the shop there. But anyway, that's all for now. I'll talk to you guys later.